Andrew had fought tirelessly every day to provide for his family and manage his work, but financial chaos always lingered in the background. One day, a single phone call changed everything, and behind that change was none other than Barron Trump. But could an unexpected decision truly transform their lives? In his darkest hour, an act of kindness from Barron opened a new door for Andrew. What happens when compassion meets determination? Follow this story to witness a miraculous transformation that you might not have imagined. The story begins. The heavy rain fell relentlessly, tapping on the car roof like an uninvited rhythm. Barron Trump, the youngest son of the former U.S. president, sat silently in the back seat of his private car. His two bodyguards sat in the front, driving through the rain-soaked streets of New York. "Sir, we will be at the hotel in 5 minutes," the driver announced. Barron nodded without replying. His gaze was drawn to the taxi ahead. Through the fog glass, he could see the driver hunched over the steering wheel. The way the man sat, tense and desperate, triggered an odd feeling of unease in Barron. Suddenly, the taxi veered to the curb and stopped. Out of curiosity, Barron ordered the driver to stop as well. The two bodyguards exchanged hesitant glances but complied. The young celebrity stepped out, his shiny shoes splashing in the puddles as he approached the taxi. He noticed the driver with his head in his hands, shoulders trembling. Barron gently tapped the window. The man flinched and rolled the window down. His face was weary, tears streaking down his cheeks. "Are you okay?" Barron asked softly. The driver shook his head. "I don't know how much longer I can do this. My family is hungry, the rent is due, and I have no idea what to do," he choked out. Barron's heart tightened. He had never witnessed such raw despair. "Can I help you?" Barron's voice dropped, filled with genuine concern. The driver hesitated, his red-rimmed eyes scanning Barron. Then, realizing who was standing before him, he didn't know how to respond. "Help me? I don't think anyone can," he mumbled. "Let me try," Barron said, his tone firm. The calmness in his voice made the older man relent. "My name is Andrew. I've been driving this cab for 16 years, but lately everything is falling apart. My wife's hospital bills, my kids' school fees. I can't keep up," Andrew said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Barron listened intently, his gaze unwavering. He had grown up with wealth, but Andrew's story hit him like a punch. "Please don't think I'm begging. I've worked my whole life, but it feels like the whole world is against me," Andrew added, his voice breaking. Barron stepped back, deep in thought. The bodyguard stood nearby, observing, but said nothing. "I'm staying at the Waldorf," Barron finally said, handing Andrew a small card. "With his assistant's contact information. Come see me tomorrow morning. We'll figure something out." Andrew stared at him in surprise. "Will you really do that for me?" Barron smiled gently. "Sometimes all we need is someone willing to listen. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. "All right." Andrew nodded, his tears now mixing with relief and disbelief. As Barron walked back to the car, he knew for certain that both his life and Andrew's life would be changed forever. The heavy rain fell relentlessly, tapping on the car roof like an uninvited rhythm. Barron Trump, the youngest son of the former U.S. president, sat silently in the back seat of his private car. His two bodyguards sat in the front, driving through the rain-soaked streets of New York. "Sir, we will be at the hotel in 5 minutes," the driver announced. Barron nodded without replying. His gaze was drawn to the taxi ahead. Through the fog glass, he could see the driver hunched over the steering wheel. The way the man sat, tense and desperate, triggered an odd feeling of unease in Barron. Suddenly, the taxi veered to the curb and stopped. Out of curiosity, Barron ordered the driver to stop as well. The two bodyguards exchanged hesitant glances but complied. The young celebrity stepped out, his shiny shoes splashing in the puddles as he approached the taxi. He noticed the driver with his head in his hands, shoulders trembling. Barron gently tapped the window. The man flinched and rolled the window down. His face was weary, tears streaking down his cheeks. "Are you okay?" Barron asked softly. The driver shook his head. "I don't know how much longer I can do this. My family is hungry, the rent is due, and I have no idea what to do," he choked out. Barron's heart tightened. He had never witnessed such raw despair. "Can I help you?" Barron's voice dropped, filled with genuine concern. The driver hesitated, his red-rimmed eyes scanning Barron. Then, realizing who was standing before him, he didn't know how to respond. "Help me? I don't think anyone can," he mumbled. "Let me try," Barron said, his tone firm. The calmness in his voice made the older man relent. "My name is Andrew. I've been driving this cab for 16 years, but lately everything is falling apart. My wife's hospital bills, my kids' school fees. I can't keep up," Andrew said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Barron listened intently, his gaze unwavering. He had grown up with wealth, but Andrew's story hit him like a punch. "Please don't think I'm begging. I've worked my whole life, but it feels like the whole world is against me," Andrew added, his voice breaking. Barron stepped back, deep in thought. The bodyguard stood nearby, observing, but said nothing. "I'm staying at the Waldorf," Barron finally said, handing Andrew a small card. "With his assistant's contact information. Come see me tomorrow morning. We'll figure something out." Andrew stared at him in surprise. "Will you really do that for me?" Barron smiled gently. "Sometimes all we need is someone willing to listen. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. All right." Andrew nodded, his tears now mixing with relief and disbelief. As Barron walked back to the car, he knew for certain that both his life and Andrew's life would be changed forever. "This city looks so different from this angle," he murmured. Andrew glanced at Barron through the rearview mirror, unsure of what he meant. "Don't worry," Barron said calmly. "I have a plan." Andrew's heart began to race. The journey continued with Barron asking questions about his life. They stopped by a small diner where Andrew usually parked to buy a cheap cup of coffee, too little money for anything else. As Andrew sipped his coffee in the taxi, Barron broke the silence. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Andrew hesitated, gripping the cup tightly. "Life hasn't always been kind to everyone, sir." "Tell me about your wife," Barron asked, his voice gentle. Andrew's voice cracked as he replied. "Grace is the strongest woman I've ever known. But cancer, it doesn't care how strong you are. We sold everything we had to pay for her treatment. Now she's at home, but—" His voice trailed off. Barron leaned forward, his youthful face displaying a compassion far beyond his years. "And your children? They're good kids," Andrew said, forcing a smile. "But it's hard to watch them grow up knowing their father can't give them what they need. There are times when I don't even have enough money for dinner." Barron's bodyguards shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't a story they were accustomed to hearing. Barron took a deep breath. "Andrew, you don't deserve this pain. No one does." Andrew's eyes welled up. Never before had a passenger shown such genuine interest in his life, let alone someone like Barron Trump. That evening, Andrew drove home, exhausted but filled with hope. As he stepped out of the taxi, his eyes landed on an envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside, there was a handwritten note. "Andrew, this is just the beginning. You've worked too hard for your family, and it's time someone acknowledged that. Don't give up hope. Tomorrow you'll understand what I mean. Barron." Along with the letter was a check. When he saw the amount, $10,000, Andrew gasped. His legs gave way, and he leaned against the car to steady himself. Tears streamed down his face, but this time they were tears of joy and hope. He rushed into the house, calling out, "Grace, you won't believe this." Grace, weak but smiling, sat up on the couch. Their children gathered around, wide-eyed as Andrew shared Barron's incredible kindness. His youngest daughter asked, "Why would someone help us like this?" Andrew's voice caught in his throat. "Because sometimes, angels come from the most unexpected places." Meanwhile, Barron stood by the hotel room window, gazing out at the city lights. His mind was spinning with new ideas. This wasn't just about helping Andrew, it was about changing his life. The next morning, Andrew woke with a strange feeling, a mixture of hope and apprehension. The check Barron left behind was enough to cover some of Grace's medication and a bit of rent, but inside, he still felt uneasy. Why would someone like Barron Trump, a young man from a billionaire family, care about a nameless taxi driver like him? That morning, Andrew's eldest son, Ryan, asked, "Dad, do you think that rich guy really cares? Or is he just doing this for the cameras?" Andrew hesitated, but Grace spoke up first. Her voice was weak but firm. Kindness isn't always motivated by something. Sometimes people do the right thing simply because they can. Andrew knew she was right, but Ryan's words still lingered in his mind. Was there a catch to Barron's help? That afternoon, Andrew's phone rang with a call from an unfamiliar number. "Hello, Mr. Andrew. This is Barron's assistant. He'd like to meet with you again tonight, at the same place as before." Andrew agreed, but his heart tightened. He wondered if this meeting would be the end of the help or the beginning of something he couldn't control. As Andrew drove to the meeting, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. He parked outside an upscale cafe where Barron had requested to meet. This was a place Andrew could never imagine stepping into, with its sparkling glass windows and a parking lot full of expensive cars. A tall bodyguard waved him over. "Mr. Trump is waiting inside." When Andrew entered, he saw Barron sitting at a corner table. He wasn't alone. There were two bodyguards and a woman who appeared to be his assistant. Barron waved, his face lighting up as Andrew approached. "Andrew, it's good to see you," Barron said warmly. Andrew sat down, his hands still shaking. "Thank you for everything, the money you gave us. It's more than I ever dreamed of." Barron smiled but leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "Andrew, I need to ask you something. Be honest with me. What do you think it would take to get your family back on its feet?" Andrew's eyes widened in disbelief. You don't understand. Grace's treatment is so expensive, and we've lost so much already." Barron nodded, his gaze unwavering. "If I could help you start over, debt-free, without worry, just a fresh start, what would you do?" Andrew felt his throat tighten. Was this a dream, or was Barron asking for something in return? He looked at Barron, unsure how to react. Those words seemed too good to be true. "Start over? I don't understand. What do you mean?" Barron leaned back, folding his arms. "I want to invest in you, Andrew. You're a good man, you work hard, and you love your family. I have the resources to help you climb out of this hole once and for all." Andrew's heart raced. "But why me? You don't even know me," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. Barron hesitated for a moment, his youthful face suddenly becoming serious. "Because I can't stand to see good people suffer, and I believe in second chances. But this isn't charity, Andrew. I need you to promise me something." Andrew's stomach twisted. Here it was, the condition for the help. "What do you need me to do?" Barron leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I need you to be willing to try. Whatever I give you, use it wisely. Build something, anything, as long as it can last. This isn't about money. It's about changing your life." Tears welled up in Andrew's eyes. No one had ever trusted him like this before, but would he have the courage to bet on himself? I don't know if I can do it," Andrew whispered. "You can," Barron said with certainty. "And I will be with you every step of the way." Andrew couldn't sleep that night. Barron's offer kept swirling in his mind, but each time hope rose, a faint voice of doubt whispered, what if he failed? What if Barron realized he wasn't worthy of such efforts? The next morning, Andrew sat by Grace's bedside. Her once bright eyes now reflected the shadows of illness, but she still offered him a weak smile as he held her hand. "You're quiet," she said softly. Andrew hesitated, then told her about Barron's offer. Grace listened intently, her hand trembling slightly when he finished. She spoke, "You deserve this chance, Andrew. We all do. But what if you fail?" Andrew's voice faltered, his eyes brimming with tears. "I don't know where to start." Grace squeezed his hand tighter. "You've kept this family going for years. You've fought harder than anyone I know. If anyone can do it, it's you." Andrew wiped his eyes. Her words gave him strength. He knew he had to act. That afternoon he called Barron. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady. "All right," Barron replied. "Meet me tomorrow. It's time to start planning your new beginning." Andrew hung up the phone, a strange feeling stirring in his chest, a mixture of fear and hope. When Andrew arrived at the meeting, he saw Barron waiting, surrounded by a team of experts, lawyers, financial advisors, and even a business consultant. It was overwhelming, but Barron's calm demeanor kept Andrew grounded. "This isn't just a gift," Barron began. "This is an opportunity. I want you to build something to secure your family's future." "What's your dream, Andrew?" Andrew stood still, the dreams he'd carried for years fading into the background. Survival had consumed every moment of his life. Finally, he spoke. "All my life, I've wanted to own a small taxi company, a reliable company that treats drivers well." Barron nodded thoughtfully. "Then we'll make that happen." In the next few hours, the team outlined a plan. Barron's investment would cover the initial costs, but Andrew would have to run the company wisely. It was daunting, but for the first time in years, Andrew felt a glimmer of hope. When the meeting ended, Barron pulled Andrew aside. "This is your second chance," he said. "Don't let fear hold you back." Andrew nodded, his throat tight. For the first time, he believed life could change. The journey wasn't easy. Andrew poured everything into building the taxi company, often working late into the night. Problems kept arising. Delays in permits, cars needing repairs, drivers quitting. But Andrew refused to give up. Grace grew weaker, and the medical bills kept piling up. Despite some progress, Andrew still felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. One evening, as he worked on the company's budget, Ryan approached hesitantly and said, "Dad, I found a part-time job after school. I can help you pay the bills." Andrew felt his chest tighten. "You're just a kid. You shouldn't have to worry about these things." Ryan shrugged, responding, "I learned from you, Dad. You never give up." Tears welled up in Andrew's eyes as he pulled his son into a tight embrace. "Thank you, Ryan. I promise everything will be all right." What no one knew was that Barron had quietly been monitoring Andrew's progress. One day, Barron's assistant called. "Mr. Trump wants to visit your family," she said. When Barron arrived, he brought not only good news but also a life-changing surprise for Andrew. Andrew could hardly believe his ears when Barron's assistant called to arrange the meeting. "Mr. Trump wants to meet your family," she said. These words were unbelievable, and Andrew wondered why someone like Barron would care about him, a struggling taxi driver. The day of the meeting arrived. Andrew's modest apartment had been tidied up, but he still felt self-conscious about the peeling wallpaper and old furniture. Grace, though weak, remained determined, sitting upright in her wheelchair to greet their guest. Ryan, anxious, adjusted his shirt, trying to appear neat. When Barron arrived, his presence filled the room. Bodyguards stood near the door, scanning the surroundings. However, Barron's warm smile put everyone at ease. "I wanted to meet the faces behind this incredible journey," Barron said, shaking Andrew's hand firmly. He sat with the family, asking about their struggles, dreams, and hopes for the future. After some time, Barron handed Andrew an envelope. Inside was a check that left Andrew speechless. "This isn't charity," Barron said. "This is an investment in a good man and his family." But it didn't end there. Barron's next words left Andrew's family stunned, and tears began to fall. Andrew opened the envelope again, and this time he noticed another paper beneath the check. It was a deed to a house. Barron had bought Andrew and his family a modest but beautiful home for them to live in, rent-free. Grace gasped, her hand trembling as she reached for Andrew's hand. This can't be real," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Barron smiled. "Your family deserves a friend, a fresh start. This house is in a good neighborhood with better schools for Ryan, and it's closer to the city, making your work more convenient. Think of it as a foundation for the new life you're building." Andrew, overwhelmed, sank to his knees, unable to contain his emotions. "I don't know how to thank you," he choked out. "Don't thank me," Barron replied sincerely. "Succeed. Show the world what a person can do when given a second chance." The family moved into their new home just a week later. For the first time in many years, they felt hope blossoming in their hearts. However, life still had one final challenge for them, one that would test Andrew's resolve and Barron's faith in him. As things began to improve, disaster struck. One of Andrew's drivers was involved in an accident, throwing his business into chaos. The cost of repairs was steep, and the injured driver needed financial assistance for medical bills. Andrew faced a difficult decision: pay the driver and delay the company's growth, or use the money to expand the business for the future. Andrew struggled with the decision, but Grace's words echoed in his mind. "You've always been the one to bring people together. Don't let fear lead you." Determined to do the right thing, Andrew used part of the money to help his driver. Word of his kindness quickly spread, and many other drivers came to him, eager to work for someone they could trust. Andrew's company began to grow not because of luck, but because of the values he was pursuing. When Barron heard about Andrew's actions, he decided to visit again, this time bringing the media with him. He wanted the world to see what kindness and perseverance could achieve. As Andrew stood in front of the cameras, he couldn't hold back his tears. "None of this would have been possible without Mr. Trump," Andrew said. "He didn't just give me money, he gave me hope." A few weeks passed, and Andrew's taxi company continued to grow steadily. His dedication and honesty had earned him loyal customers, and the drivers respected him deeply. But even as life seemed to turn a corner, Andrew couldn't shake the feeling that he owed Barron something more than just gratitude. One evening, as they sat in the living room of their new home, Grace spoke softly. "Barron didn't help us because he wanted something in return. He believes in you. Now it's your turn to make him proud." Andrew nodded, her words touching a deep part of his soul. The following morning, he reached out to a local community center. Inspired by Barron's selflessness, Andrew wanted to help others who were struggling, just as he had once been. He decided to start a program offering transportation jobs and training for those facing financial hardships. Barron, who had been following Andrew's progress, heard about the initiative and was deeply impressed. He decided to visit Andrew once more, this time without prior notice. When Barron arrived, Andrew was hosting a small community event to introduce his program. Upon seeing Barron standing at the back, Andrew's eyes welled up. He approached Barron and said, "I'm here because of you." Barron stepped forward and shook Andrew's hand. "You're here because you chose to rise above your circumstances," Barron said warmly. Andrew's program had caught the attention of the media thanks to Barron's presence, and before long, others began to support his initiative. The taxi driver who had once struggled had now become a symbol of hope in his community. However, during the event, Barron noticed Ryan sitting alone, intently watching the crowd. He walked over and asked, "What are you thinking, young man?" Ryan hesitated for a moment before admitting, "I want to help too, but I'm just a kid." Barron knelt down, smiling. "Do you know how I helped your dad? It was because I believed in one person. You can do the same. Never underestimate the power of a kind word or a small gesture." Ryan's eyes lit up, and that evening, he told his father that he wanted to organize a fundraiser for struggling families at school. Barron's wave of goodwill had now spread to a new generation. But Barron's journey with Andrew was far from over. He had one final surprise prepared, something that would change their lives forever. 2 weeks later, Andrew received an invitation to an exclusive gala in New York City hosted by the Trump family. Nervous excitement mixed with anticipation, and Andrew, Grace, and Ryan donned their finest clothes for the event. The luxury and glamour of the evening left them in awe, but Barron welcomed them warmly, escorting them to the front row. As the evening continued, Barron took the stage. He spoke about the importance of compassion and how a single good deed could change a life. Then he turned to Andrew and said, "Tonight, I want to honor a man who reminded me why helping others is so important." Andrew hasn't just received help, he's given it back. His program has supported dozens of families, And this is just the beginning. The audience erupted in applause, but Barron wasn't done yet. He revealed that he had partnered with several investors to expand Andrew's transportation program nationwide, enabling thousands of struggling families to benefit. Andrew could hardly contain his emotions, tears streaming down his face as he hugged Barron. Grace and Ryan joined him on stage, and the entire room stood to applaud. Barron smiled, knowing that a small act had changed more lives than he could have imagined. That night, as the sparkling lights of the event faded, Andrew, Grace, and Ryan returned to their new home. The silence of the night enveloped them, but each of their hearts was filled with emotion. Andrew sat in the living room chair, his eyes wandering to the family photo on the table. He realized that, despite the challenges, those trials had forged him into a stronger person. Grace walked over and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. Andrew, I always knew you were someone who could overcome anything. But today, you've proven that you're not only the rock of our family, but also a guiding light for so many others. Andrew smiled, taking her hand. Ryan walked over from across the room, his eyes shining with pride. I want to grow up to be like you, Dad, strong and never giving up. Andrew pulled his son into his arms, feeling an unexpected warmth in his heart. He knew that this journey was not just about overcoming hardships, but also about love, perseverance, and the profound meaning of sharing. A few days later, Andrew visited the community where he had established his support program. A young man approached him, his eyes welling up with tears. Mr. Andrew, thanks to your program, I got my first job after years of unemployment. Thank you for believing in people like me. Andrew gripped the man's hand tightly, his heart swelling with emotion. He realized that the change Barron had sparked wasn't limited to his own family. It had spread far and wide, creating lasting transformations. One late afternoon, as the sunset painted the sky in shades of red, Barron made a surprise visit. He stood outside the gates of Andrew's home, gazing at the small house and hearing the laughter and conversation echoing from within. Not stepping inside, he simply smiled in satisfaction, quietly turning away, leaving behind a short note placed on the doorstep. Andrew, thank you for making me believe that one good deed can spark a change in the world. I am proud of you. Keep spreading this light. Barron. Andrew read those words, and an indescribable feeling welled up inside him. He knew that, though the journey was far from over, with the love of his family, the support of the community, and his belief in the goodness of people, he was ready to move forward, stronger than ever. And somewhere, amidst the bustling streets or in the quiet corners of the world, the light from these small acts of kindness continued to spread, connecting strangers' hearts and creating a better world. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the strength of compassion and second chances. If you were in Andrew's shoes, what would you do when faced with a life-changing opportunity? Have you ever encountered a challenging situation and found strength in someone else's trust in you? Share your story in the comments. Your voice could inspire others and spark positive change. If this message resonates with you, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and loved ones, so together we can spread kindness and perseverance. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared with the intention of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any mistakes, kindly overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.